Hello and welcome. In this lecture, we are going to experiment with data type conversion. Sometimes when programming, there are times you need to reference a data type in a variable of another type. So in these instances, you will need to convert from one data type into another. So here we'll learn how to do that. To illustrate, we are going to create a new ASP.NET application. So if you go to Start All Programs, Visual Studio, right click on Visual Studio and click on Run as Administrator. So always run Visual Studio as administrator if possible. All right, so I've got Visual Studio launched. So I'm going to create a new project. So I'm going to go New Project. I'm going to click on Web and click on ASP.NET Web Application. I'm going to give the application a name here. I'm just going to call it Conversions. Conversions, okay. And this is the location, it will save the project. All right. When you name your applications, don't leave any spaces, okay? So if you've got a double barrel name for your application, make sure there are no spaces between the names. Normally, if you're using more than one word, then you might use capitalization to capitalize the first letter of the first word and then capitalize this first letter of the second word and so on. So click OK to continue. And you're given a list of templates to select from. There are different types of ASP.NET applications you can create, but we are going to focus on the web forms and we're going to select this empty one here, the empty. By selecting the empty template, okay, what would happen, it will allow us to add the form later. You also, under here where it's got add folders and call references, you want to check this where it says web forms. Okay, by doing that enables us to add it later. Also make sure this option is not checked because we don't want to host it in the cloud and we don't want to add any unit testing at the moment because this is just a basic illustration. When you're done, just click OK and Visual Studio will build the template. Let's add a web form. So right click where it's got the name of your solution here, just right click on there and go add, and there's an option for web form and that should add web form. You give the web form a name. For simplicity, I'm just going to call it default. And then click OK. So there are different views here. So this is the source code view. So we're going to go into the design view, which is this one. And you can see this is where we are going to actually design our basic form. Let's insert some controls via the toolbox. So this is the toolbox. We click on that. That's the general. The first thing we want to do, we want to add a text box. So look for a text box. I'll just scroll down. You can also search the toolbox if you want. Text box. Okay. So that's the tab text box. So I just click on there and go back to the toolbox and double click to add it. All right. So I've now added a text box. I just make that bit big. Okay. So that's the text box. I'll just tab inside to create some space. Let's make this a bit bigger. And I'll tab down. Next thing I want to do, I want to add a button. So I go back here. There should be a button. Okay. double click to add the button. All right, so it's added the button, and just drag it to make it a bit bigger. Tab inside and tab down. Finally, I want to create a label. So I go back in and I look for label, just double click, and this will be my label. Okay. All these controls here have their corresponding properties here. You can see this text box one is referring to that. So what I'm going to do is change some values here, but you have to have it selected. So I'm going to change the programmatic ID. So I'm going to change the ID where it's got text box. See, notice it's got ID next to it. I'm going to change that value to input text box. Notice the capitalization of the words, the beginning of the word text and the beginning of the word box. All right. We'll do the same with the button. Click on the button, and again, where it's got the ID, I'm going to change that to OK button. Again, notice the capitalization of the second word. Finally, I'll go to the label, come here, I'll change the ID to result label. So I've changed the programmatic ID of all the controls. I'm going to stop this lecture here because it's gone on a bit long, and we will continue in part 2. So thank you for watching so far. Bye for